Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I'm doing week 3 of my 2024 reads. This week I read some sci-fi books and I DNF'd a book. Timestamps and content warnings are in the description box below. First, I read The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula Guin, which was a buddy read with Matt from Bask in This Story, who I'll link below. Matt and I had such an interesting experience reading this, just lots of discussions about what was going on, about theming, about reading this sort of classic sci-fi and the way that it imagined the future and how it has a sort of retrofuturism in it. This is basically a story that imagines a future that is pretty bleak, a lot of overpopulation, a lot of ecological degradation, all these sorts of things. It was published in 1971, but is imagined, actually a lot closer to our current timeline, a little bit earlier. And we follow a man who has this ability to change reality through his dreams, but it's not something that he controls. It's just whatever happens in his dreams sometimes becomes reality. Not always, but sometimes. And he is trying to avoid doing that. He ends up getting sent to a psychologist, and that psychologist maybe has other ideas of what to do with the dreams. This was really interesting just in terms of being cli-fi before cli-fi was cool, in terms of a lot of this examination using the idea of dreams versus reality and kind of how those maybe could interact. Really interesting world building each time that reality is changed by the dreams. It feels very real for that new world, right? And only a few people remember that anything was different, and some just kind of adapt, and some are really struggling with it. I think that the characters in this were interesting contrasts to each other, and there was a lot of theming regarding their personalities. But especially in the second half, it gets pretty intense. I've read some other Le Guin sci-fis that are part of, I think, the Hainish cycle that are a little bit more just philosophical and slow. This one actually gets quite fast. It's a short book and it gets quite fast towards the end. Lots of action, lots of extreme things happening, things that really are out of left field, like not expecting it, but it kind of makes sense because it's based on dreams, right? So what happens could be rather wild, just like your dreams could be. It does have a tendency at times to get a little bit monologuing and philosophizing, which Le Guin sometimes does, but really interesting ideas in this. Had a lot of discussion with Matt, so that was a fun aspect of it. And I think this is probably the sci-fi book of Le Guin's that I think is easiest to get into. Some of her other ones are just a bit slower. So yeah, I had a fun time with this and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Stray Cat Strut, Volume 1 by Raven's Dagger, which is another sort of dystopian sci-fi. This one takes place maybe 50, 100 years in the future from now, and it follows a teenager cat who ends up becoming what's called a samurai. So in this world, aliens have invaded Earth, and they're constantly doing incursions, but there are certain people on Earth who have been selected by a different alien AI race to become these very super powered people who fight off the aliens. The idea of, we'll empower you to fight them off yourself, we're not going to interfere. There is some really great commentary about capitalism and about the way that people are used in this story, but at its heart, it's kind of just a lot of action. So it's a lot of battling aliens, and basically Cat gets a lot of different powers through these AI who have a catalog of upgrades. So it's a lit RPG, so constantly she's upgrading her skills through this catalog. And there's a lot of battling aliens, but which isn't, I'm not like huge on action scenes, but just like all of Raven's Dagger's works, the characters in this are just so relatable and so enjoyable. I love the world building in it. It's just really creative, and you just get drawn in and you never quite know where the story is going, and so it's just quite a lot of fun to participate in it, even if it's just very action heavy. And this is something that Sush, my husband, read out loud to me, and it was just really fun. He was reading this out loud to me for a while, like while we were doing, Christmas baking and all sorts of things, and it was just a really fun experience. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and we've already started the second book, and we're having a fun time with it. And then lastly, I did DNF a book, which was Hazardous Spirits by Anbara Salam. This is a historical fiction set in the 1920s in Scotland, and it's about a housewife whose husband tells her that he's gotten into the spiritualist movement and now he can hear the voices of the dead. They're giving him messages, and she gets totally freaked out by it. This is something that I had on my anticipated releases list because the premise just sounds so cool. I love historical fiction. I love kind of creepiness and like any sort of gothic story. So I thought this would be right up my street. But as I started realizing it, reading it, I realized that the tone was just a little bit different. So rather than this feeling like some sort of historical speculative work, it actually feels much more like a historical domestic thriller. So the tone is quite different. The main character is just like a lot of domestic thrillers, somebody who's a little bit unreliable. She's somebody who's a little bit dislikable and doesn't make great choices. And so I really struggled with her as a main character. I don't like the way that she treats other people in her life, her sister, her husband, even other random people that she meets. She's constantly lying and, judging people. I really struggled with her as a main character. And this is a lot more of that kind of high tension feel, like a thriller would be, rather than a little bit more of the slow, mysterious kind of gothic feel that I was going for, or imagining that this might be. But I think that the historical setting is really well done. It's gonna kind of integrate quite a bit about the Spanish flu and World War I and all of the deaths that happened there. So I think there's a lot of really cool things that are happening in this. And I think that the writing was very engaging, but I just didn't want to be in the book because I was just so turned off by the main character and the tone of it. So I think that's just me not liking domestic thrillers so much. But if that is a genre you like, this could be a really good read for you. So I DNF'd this at 11% because I felt like I'd gotten enough of an idea of the tone of it. But I definitely would say that this could work for lots of other readers. Okay, that is everything that I read and DNF'd this week. If you guys have read any of these, if you're interested in them, you want to chat with me about them, or if you read anything good this week, I'd love to hear from you. Just leave me a comment down below.